one of the rules should be you never should kick the can down the road.
Okay.
Right? So you got to, I think every day you have to address issues.
Hey, it's Ari Santiago, President, CEO of IT Direct. Really excited for this episode of Made in America. I'm with Chris Ulbrich, CEO of Ulbrich Stainless Steels and Special Metals. Say that right?
That's right, Ari.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for coming on. We were Chris and I were in an article together from CBIA. We kind of met through that. We've got some other kind of connections and acquaintances. We actually have an office right down the road from each other.
That's right.
Which is great. So thanks so much, Chris, for coming on and sharing your views today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, listen, it's the Made in America podcast. So we always start off with the same two questions. What do you make and why do you make it?
Well, we make metal and our customers make parts in 160 alloys. And our metal goes into cars, medical equipment, consumer goods, defense, you name it. You're not far from Ulbrich material in hospitals, in your car. Even toothbrushes are held in with some metal, believe it or not.
Really?
Toothbrushes.
From you guys?
Yep. And airbags, we make 80% we supply the metal for airbags in the United States. Wow. And in springs.
Give the audience some context. What's the footprint of Ulbrich, Ulbrich Steel across employees and locations?
Yeah, we have over 700 employees worldwide and 10 locations and six locations throughout the world and 6 continents.
Right,
yeah.
6 continents. And headquartered in North Haven, right?
Yes, North Haven, Connecticut.
And all 300 employees in the North Haven?
North Haven, Wallingford area. We employ 300 people in Connecticut in that area. Yep.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And so let's talk a little bit about the why, why you guys are kind of in the stainless steels and special metal business. I know we're coming up almost on 100 years.
100 years.
Of
Not
the
there yet. Not there yet.
Almost. Well, getting close. I think we're like almost 4 years out here, right?
That's
so
right.
We're almost there. 96 years old. It's a pretty good accomplishment in and of itself.
Is that almost?
And doing well. I'd say that's almost. So, when it started, it wasn't stainless steels and special metals, and it wasn't making airbags. So why don't you share with our audience, how did the company get started?
Yeah, so we're in our 4th generation, but my grandfather started the company in 1924 as a scrapyard, buying broken cars, breaking them up, selling them, reselling them for scrap and parts. And then we moved into the Meriden. Wallingford was very famous for flatware and hollowware, and we were in the
cutlery making business?
Cutlery business for diners in the 50s. Mm-hmm. All the diners across the United States had our cutlery in it.
Really?
Yeah, and we had the Army contract in World War II to make the Army mess kit knife.
No kidding.
And the Army, the government gave us the zinc and told us the price, let us make a small profit, and we made 8 million knives for the war effort.
No kidding.
Yeah, and then after
GIs in the theater cutting into their rations using Ulbrich steel fashioned knives.
And then we go way back because my grandfather after the war sponsored 50 men. Back then, if you had a sponsor, you could come to the United States, work for a year, have a clean record, then you bring your families across. Mm-hmm. So the 50 men, mainly Polish and Hungarian. People who had no homes left from the war. Mm-hmm. Some of them were in concentration camps and had the tattoos, but they worked for my grandfather, and some of their kids work for us today.
No kidding.
Yeah, most of the gentlemen are passed away now, of course, but great history, and that's why we have a strong Polish, Hungarian community in Wallingford, Meriden, and now it's it's growing Hispanic more, but back then it was Hungarian and Polish. Yeah,
no kidding.
And they were great metal workers. And
so how'd you guys get from scrapyard to then diner flatware? I think we can all agree that the diner flatware market probably is not what it was in the 50s.
Yeah.
And now we're in airbags, we're in toothbrushes. You had mentioned to me kind of off camera before that you guys help provide the metal for some heating element at gas stations. I mean, it's crazy the amount of stuff you guys are in. How did that transition happen?
Well, I think we have a culture in which we of change. Think about it. I've been in the business 43 years. We didn't even have a computer back then, right? we had fax machines.
That hurts my heart, Chris. That's all I do is computers.
I don't know if Justin knows what a fax machine is, but right? So and it's change. You change, and our people change. And we have people working for us 20, 30, 40 years. And we have this gentleman works for us for 45 years, has worked on the same machine, a Polish gentleman, and he 9 years of perfect attendance.
Wow.
And think about what he had to go through to change.
Right.
Our different computer systems, ERP systems, quality college, and all this stuff. And keeping up with the Joneses, changing, and it's not easy. People, and one of the biggest attributes is being a team player. Yep. I think in business, you got to be a team player, be flexible, willing to change, willing to learn from the person next to you, below you or above you.
Above you, I agree. I want to talk a lot about the continuous learning. Before we get to that, I do want to ask you a little bit, because I think it was really interesting. I didn't know a lot about exactly kind of what Ulbrich Stainless Steels and Special Metals does. And, you had said, hey, we do everything that a foundry does besides the melting. And I had told you, the melting is all I knew that they did. So maybe you could sort of share with our audience, what it is you guys actually do and what you provide.
So we get material from a melting mill in coil form, and then we reshape it, roll it, anneal it, cut it to specifications of what people need for medical instruments, for all these parts. Mm-hmm. And it's important. If it's in your body, if it's on an airplane, if it's a nuclear reactor, if it's on a missile system or something, you got to get the exact requirements. We have metal in space on a lot of the satellites.
So what kind of, these are all kinds of different, you said special, so stainless steel, I think we all generally know what that is, and special metal. So you guys are really working across the board, and it's all different kind of metal forming technology?
There's different alloys, they call it. So it's like making a cake. There's a chocolate cake, there's a vanilla cake, whatever. And same thing with the alloys. There's an alloy that's great for high temperature and high strength. And it's probably more expensive than something. A salt shaker top is $430 and it's magnetic, or the cover of your refrigerator.
Right.
So, but it's different mixtures for what's needed. Titanium for speakers. It's very in every speaker there's titanium strip, so it can go back and forth and and vibrate in the sound that we hear. So it depends on the requirements that engineers and metallurgists design, and for medical instruments or for whatever. So that's what we do.
When did you guys sort of expand? Obviously your deep roots here in Connecticut. When did you guys start expanding outside of the state?
We started expanding outside the state in the 60s to Illinois, and then internationally in the 80s. We started. We went to start shipping overseas. Half our sales right now is international, and half is in America.
Yeah. And when you say international, you guys have some locations in Canada. That is, you said overseas. Is most of your international business in sort of the NAFTA area, or are you really shipping steel?
Yeah, we're shipping steel. We're shipping auto parts to China. We're 70% of all the solar cells in Europe is our metal from Austria. Believe it or not, we're heavily involved with solar, which is clean and renewable, which is exciting.
Yeah, that is
for the environment. And so our metal, a lot of locations.
So I think what's really interesting, and a thread I'd like to really pull on right now, and something we've talked about on this podcast before, which is constant innovation and change is crucial to being in business and being successful in business over the long haul. I think Ulbrich has a very interesting history of that, as we mentioned, 96 years in counting. And I think just the story we've talked about, going from scrapping of cars to making the metal that goes into solar panels, speaks to how you've successfully been able to traverse huge changes, in the economy over the last 100 years. Talk about that a little bit. What you guys have done to do that, what you do today to kind of stay on trend and move that ball forward and stay relevant.
Well, let's see. 20% of our sales in a couple of our factories, we haven't had that business in 2 years. We classify a new product as something that we didn't have for the last 2 years.
Okay.
So 20% is new. So where do we find new stuff?
Yeah.
Trade shows, new markets. Solar is so advanced versus what it was than 20 years ago.
Yep.
So we go to trade shows. We have historic customers that call up and say, hey, we make this widget. We'd like to make it better. Or we make this, airbags. Yeah, they were talking about airbags, in the driver's side. Oh, how about the passenger side? Now you have them.
It's a driving airbag. It feels
Yeah,
like.
now you have and 28 different spots in some of the high end cars. So,
Yeah.
I think trade shows and word of mouth, and we're very strong on the internet with the SEO and the SEM and searches.
So do you
and
have
things
an
like that.
innovation team? Like, how do you know? I mean, you obviously must be engaged deeply with a customer for a customer to come to you and say, hey, can you make this metal differently or better? Like, is there an innovation team? Is there a process for doing that?
Yeah, we have a group of people. We have metallurgists who work on the chemistries and the type. If it's high temperature, what kind of alloy do you use? And we have product managers who by market maybe in a lot of cases. So we have somebody who knows an aircraft market. So how, what alloys do we use in aircraft? How can we get better at it? So between metallurgists, product managers, and then outside sales and inside sales, promoting the products, providing the service. We're a supply chain partner for people, and we're a development partner for people. So it's two key things.
That is a very key thing. So actually, can I pull on that for just a little bit? So let's talk about what the 300 people in Connecticut look like. I mean, I know it's the corporate headquarters, so there's the corporate staff, which is important. But you had mentioned something, metallurgists, chemists, being that development arm to help folks. So what does the staff that works kind of at Ulbrich look like?
Well, we have a lot of different people. We have rolling equipment. We're heavy capitalized with rolling equipment. And annealing equipment, slitting equipment. So we have lots of people working 3 shifts with that. We have inside sales, outside sales, metallurgists, product managers in the front office. So and we also have other products, other forms, our flat wire, shape wire, and then in Canada and Mexico we have our general line service center. Sheets for your refrigerator, or bars for the cement you see, structural cement, things like that.
Like rebar and
stuff like that. We sell some of that in Canada.
Wow,
yeah.
So you guys are really all over.
Yeah.
Maybe not educated. To me, rebar seems like maybe down market from a technology perspective versus solar panels and pacemakers, which seems up market. And you talked about it also before, kind of making medical. So is it difficult to kind of manage that wide range of different functionalities?
At times it is, but I think we're much smaller on some of that than we were before. So we're more focused, and then we had other businesses, shopping centers, and you really had to be focused on what you're doing. And so we've done that. We refocused the company in the 70s and 80s, and shrunk some of our product lines. But again, and we go to different places because we want to follow our customers. Our customers went to Canada. Customers went to Mexico. Customers went to China, and now a bunch of them are coming back. So, we built in China and 2 factories, and we ended up closing them because it was very difficult to do business there.
What happened? Let's talk about that.
And every year it'd be some new taxes. Sounds familiar, right? And and you had to keep 50% of your capital over there. So for a private company, you had to keep 50% of your investment always over there. So we had like 2% of our sales there and like 20% of our debt. and so if we were successful, maybe we would have to go Chapter 11 or find a partner. Right. And so
is that their strategy?
I don't know. They have different strategies depending on the markets and the technology they want and things like that. But we just couldn't do it. But we still we do ship over there to this day, and we're heavily involved in the Asian markets in Japan and in Europe. Yep.
Yeah, that's great. So talk a little bit about, I want to kind of go through this 96-year history, and I'm always fascinated by multi-generational businesses and the success that you guys have had in doing that. So what's been your guys' strategy to successfully transition the business through the generations?
Well, I think with when you're in a family company, there are blesses and curses, right? And
probably true about every company, Chris.
And and I think one of the rules should be you never should kick the can down the road.
Okay.
Right? So you got to, I think every day you have to address issues and address the issue. Is it, the father not giving the stock and he's 90 years old, or, somebody's in a job, and it doesn't fit. Well, but you got to address the issues, and I think we've done that. We've addressed issues. Keep going forward. Not easy. We've had lots of pain, suffering, deaths, and my uncle died in 1979 at 35, and his family left the business. And then my other uncle died in 2008. His family left the business. So there's.
So when something like that happens, is there like a buyout situation?
Yeah.
Okay.
And most companies have buy-sell agreements, and then that's the other thing. You got to make sure that you have the money. So we have insurance for that.
Not a small feat, correct?
Yeah, we have insurance for that, and then of course, you got these extra costs because if you have insurance.
Right.
Other companies don't have that.
Right.
Now, public companies, of course, they have other costs going public and things like that. But
like that.
But family company. Address what you're real good at. Focus. Don't kick the can. Address issues and have all the the right documents and listen to experts. Listen.
I was going to ask you about that. Have you used some people say, hey, bring in an outside consultant to kind of help deal with the family mentality. Other people have argued that there should be a mix of family and non-family management. Do you guys subscribe to any of those approaches?
No. Yes, we've brought in outside people who for attorneys and tax people and things like that. And we're involved with Ernst & Young right now on a project strengthening the family's governance and boards. And it's been invented before, so you just have to listen.
Right.
We're nothing new. You just got to understand how it fits. How does a shoe horn fit in the shoe to make you stronger? Yeah. And so we're going to our 4th and 5th generation, strengthening our governance. And my goal is to get some out. We have one outside board member. I'd like to get a couple other outside people, understand the skill set that we need, and strengthening the company.
When you guys look at your board, well, actually, before I ask you about the board, so I do have a question about that. But when you're looking at family members, do you guys? I know some family businesses sort of say, "Listen, you can come into the family business, but you got to start somewhere else first." Is that a philosophy you guys subscribe to?
It's worked out that way, and we're formalizing some of the rules that the governance committee of the family, and we're working on that. But lots of people in the company have worked at. Family members have worked other places, like myself, my son. All my sons have worked in other locations. So I think it's highly recommended that. And then you come in and what's your strength?
Perspective and some different.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, I don't want to say testing, but there's surveys on what's your strength. Are you creative, or are you an accountant, or are you Mr. and Mrs. Sales?
Right.
What's your you don't want. If you have a glowing personality, you don't want to be the cost accountant in the back room, So and
not if you want to be happy.
And a lot of times, matter of fact, that's what we subscribe to some of these surveys and stuff, and that's what happened. One of our cost accountants, his mother and father are cost accountants, and he became one. He hated his job. So after one of these surveys called the PI Index. We put him out in outside sales. 40 years later, he's still in outside sales, not with us, with one of our competitors. Yeah, and he's a friend of mine. He's a friend of mine. So Ron was great, and people.
You helped him find his. Calling.
But he worked for us for 25 years too.
Oh,
so
there you go.
Yeah. So I think it's important to know who you are and what you are, what motivates you, and things
How long
like
have
that.
you guys been doing stuff like the PI Index? So you said that sounds like must have been a long time ago.
We've had that since 1975. And it's a tool.
Yeah,
it's just a tool,
of course.
And it's not black and white. It's a tool to view and say, yeah, that makes sense. He or she is XYZ good marketing or
right
or
Yeah. I mean, something that I've found to be a truism in business is when you put the right person, when you put the person in a position that's in alignment with what they enjoy doing and what they like doing, their performance, their happiness, everything just goes through the roof. And it's an interesting story that you've seen that actually happen right in the front, right in front of your face.
And now, of course, you have all the different generations, the millennials and Generation Z and everything. One of my baby boomer, right? And we're all influenced differently.
Yeah.
So trying to understand some of that. And,
sure, different life experiences. Different,
so we're working on that for the younger generation joining us. What they want more free time. How can we do that?
Yeah,
as
their
a private
priorities are a
company.
little bit different than
Yeah.
where
So
they
we're
are.
working on that, and I think we have a strong culture, and it's addressing some of that. It's good.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that. When you guys are looking to, I mean, we talked to a lot of manufacturers, and a lot of folks are feeling like, I mean, listen, the good news is there's low unemployment, right? Which means people are working, and that's positive. The challenge, of course, with low unemployment, and it's a high class problem to have, but it's a problem nonetheless, is hard to find the people, that we need. So, are you finding that there are some of those challenges out there, and what are you guys doing to combat them if you are seeing that?
There's definitely challenges out there finding people. At the same time, we're going to the colleges, and we're having a lot of luck, or I think our culture, lots of word of mouth. We have a bounty system. If one of our current employees finds somebody, they get a couple $100. After 6 months if the person stays, and so you're going to recommend somebody who's good, not right.
Yep.
So we're having a lot of I think a lot of success in this area, finding people not only in Connecticut, but in our Chicago and South Carolina operations.
Are you finding that in the other places? I know you guys have a unique perspective, because not only do you have, business all over the U.S., but you've also got business in Austria, you've got business in Mexico and Canada and so on. So, but in your U.S. operations, are you finding also the same sort of this unemployment challenge and recruiting challenge across the board?
In Connecticut, we can find people easier in Connecticut than in South Carolina, because we're kind of in the woods down outside Clemson, and so and Greenville is a hot area, an hour and 20 minutes from our factory. All the Germans, Airbus is there, and Boeing, Airbus, and the BMW, German Triangle is there.
BMW, right?
BMW, and so down south is a little harder as of right now. And Chicago is not so bad, and people stay with us for a lot. Yeah, our turnover is under half a percent, and so it's very, very low. And so
let's talk about that. I mean, that's a number I think every business owner, including myself, could envy. How do you go about finding folks, I assume good folks, right, that want to stay?
Well, I think giving people the freedom, that's one of the issues. You go to a large company, maybe you just work on one widget in an airplane.
Yep.
With ourselves, you're working on the entire airplane, or different industries, and people have the power and the strength to do a lot of different jobs with us, and so people are team players, and then we're big with lean. So we're doing over 1,500 lean events in all our factories a year.
A year.
Yep. Nice. And so we call it an A3. So the four of us right here would work on an A3 and how to do this more efficiently, or how to get hot pizza, not cold pizza. No, but no. So then we'd come up with at the end of the week, here it is. Here's the improvement: safety, quality, yield loss. So we have a product that we had 40% scrap. We've brought it down to 17% scrap. Lots of safety stuff, and our safety records are improved dramatically.
Do you think there's like the way you're talking about it, I wonder, do you see a double win? Meaning, not only are you getting the benefits of the yield loss reduction, the improvements in safety and all that, but it sounds like by engaging people and having the team do it, through the lean A3 exercises, you're actually getting them engagement, which it sounds like you think helps them to stay and be more long-term employees and reduce turnover.
And they and people want to be needed and do a good job. I mean, we have hourly people and non-salary, salary people stand up and say, okay, here's in front of 50 people saying this is the improvement that we worked on, and I'm proud of it. And somebody's not getting hurt because of it, or the company's improved its yields because of it, or there's less movement. For ergonomics, things like that. So it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
How do you, when you look at, Ulbrich stainless steel and specialty metals across the globe, do you feel like the culture is one culture that's you somehow managed to get between facilities? Is it somewhat the same, but then it's unique by location? Because not to put too fine a point on it, but we've had conversations with folks that have a few locations in Connecticut, or maybe Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York. I mean, you're dealing with, Northeast, South, Canadian language barriers, cultural, across the ocean? What does that look like from a culture standpoint?
Well, I think on the quality side and on the lean side, we're all one culture, one company, because it's, I see it as everybody's a doctor. I mean, here and our quality lab, I mean, they're approving stuff that could end up in somebody's body in 2 weeks from now,
right?
Or on an airplane, or
Right.
on a nuclear reactor. So you got to do things right.
Yes, please.
And do things right the first time. Good enough is not
Not good enough. Not nuclear reactors, that's for sure.
So,
yeah.
but then at the same time, in the other locations, they have different medical systems and different laws in Mexico and Canada, Austria. So it's hard comparing to some of the stuff, But quality and lean and some of our literature and rules on HR and things like that. It's pretty.
Do you guys have do you guys have a meeting rhythm or a communication rhythm that you guys use to kind of keep people marching in the same direction and kind of get the quality culture of the company kind of going forward? And if you do, could you share that with the audience?
I don't know, rhythm. It's just we have some directions on our mission statement on being a development partner and a supply chain partner, and we kind of put a lot of our systems around those things, and we have quarterly meetings and for capital and things like that to understand, if we're heading the right way, or is there a problem with certain markets or things like that. So, and then of course, what happens a lot is outside activities, outside events affect us. I mean, 2009, everybody in the company was laid off for 6 weeks, including me. We all collected unemployment, everybody in the company. And
globally.
Again, different rules in Canada and Mexico and things like that, but roughly, because our business went down 50%, and we had 160 people left us, and it was a tough time. There was no banking basically in 2009. And
can you walk us through that? I think there's a really interesting lesson I think here to learn, because listen, I don't think it's how you start, it's how you finish and how you persevere. And obviously to go 96 years, you've had to persevere through a lot of stuff. So talk a little bit about that, leading up. What did Ulbrich Steel look like coming into that 08, 09?
No, I think in 08 and 09, we're very busy, making a lot of parts, doing good. Downturn happened, Lehman Brothers and all that in New York because of the greedy equity people, which, is almost today in some cases.
Yep.
I don't think equity people should be allowed to own certain industries like steel companies. I don't think they do very well. But and thank goodness we had some leadership. We had Bush and then Obama, who approved some of the loans to pay off auto people, and the third tier and the second tier, and of course I think the government made money on a lot of that on GM and all that, and back then the Bush administration going out, Obama's administration coming in, and I think they set the tone, and obviously we had a strong recovery. You can argue about who didn't what to who, but strong recovery. We're right now we're one of the strongest countries in the world.
Absolutely.
Europe's in recession. China, you can't believe their growth numbers. Who knows what it is? And here we're busy. Unemployment low. I mean, there's obviously some issues.
There's always problems, right?
And is there the yield curve took a turn, and is there going to be a correction one of these days? 10 years of growth, there's always a correction. When is it coming?
Right.
And
it's probably not an if, it's more of a when.
Yeah. So there's but those are tough times, and
what caused the business to drop? I mean, 50% drop in business is rough. Was it due a lot to? Was it automotive that pulled back, or what pulled back?
I think everything. I mean, there was nobody could get loans, and the consumer, of course. There was some mortgage issues and mortgage fraud all that, and nobody could get loans. Nobody's buying a car. Nobody's buying houses. Look at Connecticut mortgage lenders. Went bankrupt. I mean, bankruptcy on bankruptcy, and it was the credit wasn't there for businesses or for people. So, And
how did the company handle how did you make the decision to do the complete, the company-wide 6-week layoff? How did that decision come to pass?
Well, we've had meetings. In matter of fact, we reduced our inventories, millions of dollars, and we ended up breaking even that year. We were stronger than our two banks. Our two banks were, you're in trouble when you're stronger than your banks.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah, the banks were basically bankrupt. One of them did go bankrupt. So the banks are bankrupt. You're struggling. Then we pushed out our trade, from 30 days to 60 days, 90 days.
Worked through some stuff.
And we reduced our inventories. We took the layoffs, collected $544 unemployment, and came back strong. And
how did you get the team behind that? That's a big move. I think big problems require bold action, and it's impressive you guys were able to do that. I think it'd be instructive. How did you get people to get on board with it? How did you communicate it? Did a lot of people did people come back? Did people not come back? How did that execute?
No, I think a lot of people came back, and there were tough things like in Illinois when you have a layoff. For unemployment, you can't collect money for 2 weeks. You don't get the check for 2 weeks.
Oh.
So people are sitting there saying, well, I won't have any food next week because I don't have because some people live paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what the percentage is, but let's just say 30%. So we gave people gift cards for
to cover the gap.
To cover the gap. Right. And we paid everybody's medical. We paid everybody's medical. We didn't. We ignored the deductions on the paycheck. So people appreciated that we're covering the families, getting things like that. So it was tough. That was 10 years ago. I mean, a long time ago. But my point is outside activities. 9/11, this was a disaster for our country and business and airplanes and travel, and never mind our lives haven't been the same.
Sure.
And 9/11 and some of these downturns, outside activities, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing.
So what do you, when you look forward as kind of, coming up on the 100 years and the next 100 beyond that, what does Ulbrich do to innovate and stay ahead of the curve to be around for another 100 years? Where are you investing to make that happen?
Well, we're finishing a latest rolling mill, a $9 million rolling mill in Wallingford, which you're welcome to come down and see.
I would.
And we have some of the latest technology on it in North America. Mm-hmm. And to roll metal 5 and 6 times thinner than your hair on it. For the world needs cleaner air, cleaner water, and we're here with these grades and with these alloys. Things are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Yeah. We're I got hearing aids, hearing aid batteries, and hearing aids. That's our metal. Yeah. So you just look around and there's new things are being invented, and it's
you're very positive. You're real positive. I know you said it's hard to be bullish, but you're a real positive guy. I think seeing kind of the opportunities out there.
No, and pollution control. I mean, we need cleaner. Every smoke chimney, there's metal in it to clean the pollution, and we need that in the world and in this country, and we ship internationally too. And obviously the air in China and India and places like that sometimes are worse here than here. So some of our products are used over there.
So you guys have a role in sort of helping the green movement and cleaning things up. Seems like you're pretty passionate about that.
Yeah, no, and we're trying to want to get involved with Conscious Capitalism. Is some companies involved in Connecticut. They have a branch here, and how to be a better user of our environment on wood, lumber, waste, things like that. I mean, it's a win-win for everybody. When you do things right, it's usually cheaper.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
I don't know how, when you do things right and do it right the first time.
That's right. That's right.
Just got to get there. Just got to know what you're doing. So, yeah.
So let's get a little personal on this thing. What kind of inspired you to get involved in the family business and to end up leading the family business the way that you have?
Well, I worked for my two uncles and my father, and I think what's really important, what kind of my job is to make sure our people have medical insurance. Yeah. Our numbers, we just went over $10 million for our benefits on medical. Okay, and 1,300 lives. 1,300 lives. Again, Canada, Mexico, they have
yeah,
a different system. But U.S., 1,300 people, we supply medical insurance, and it's very important for them.
Yes, sir.
And it's important for me for them to have that.
Yep.
And how do we make it better? How more affordable? And it's a struggle. There's lots of problems with it. And I think that and I'm big with been involved with wellness and that type of stuff. So I think so overall with my HR hat, I spend a lot of time on that. So
is that what you're passionate about?
I think so. That's one thing.
Helping people and you drive them forward.
Yeah.
What do you see about the next transition in the family business? I know your three boys are in the business and interested in moving forward. Is that the future of Ulbrich?
Yep. Yeah. We're working hard on it, strengthening the governance and coming up with some different governance rules, get other family members involved. And again, I think one of the keys is strengthening our board and with outside people and inside people.
Talk about your board makeup, because that's something that's, I think, fascinating to me is, when you guys look at your board and you want to have that board, how do you decide who's on it? What's the role of the board in helping, manage the business?
Well, the board has legal responsibility in the state for various things, but also what we use the board for is to approve capital, and the board, of course, hires board of directors people. Right. And so the board has that hat. And again, we use the board for managing our company for capital and things like that, new products to get in or expansions and things like that.
Sure.
So,
have you found the board to be helpful?
Yes. No, it's very, very helpful. We have one independent member and mainly family members. And yeah.
How often does the board meet?
5 times a year. Mm-hmm. At various points for various reasons. Yep.
Got it. And you report out, and you're looking to kind of expand the depth of the board.
The depth. Probably the schedule will probably be the same. Yep. Yeah.
So I know you're pretty passionate about the Connecticut economy, and I don't want to kind of wrap our conversation without getting in on that. So I mean, you've obviously seen the ups and downs in your industry, and things are kind of up right now. Just first question is, do you see the good times continuing for the foreseeable future as far as the economic status for Ulbrich? I mean, you made a big investment, obviously, in a local mill, so that's probably positive.
Yeah. No, we see our business continuing as of right now. And again, lots of our business isn't in Connecticut; it's worldwide. So, but we think our markets are strong with airplanes, medical. Different items like that. So
what do you like best about being in Connecticut?
Well, Connecticut, Connecticut's wonderful. I mean, we have the workforce between the four seasons. You can hear positive things on Connecticut. That's amazing, huh?
Those are good things.
We're between Boston, New York, the ocean, the mountains. I mean, we have everything going for us here.
That's right.
Unfortunately, we do have. In business, what you have to do is address root cause issues.
Yep.
If you have a root cause problem here, you address it. Is it the location? Is it not enough staff or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Connecticut, it's our pension liability. Mm-hmm. So we won't even talk about how we got there,
sure.
But we have a pension liability. So how do we address it? Is it all going to be paid off? Is it okay? Do we need more tax revenue? That's what we need leadership for, to figure some of this stuff out and to tell us the truth, the root cause, and tell us the truth. Have a real, work together and get answers for it. I find it's amazing. We were talking about the latest number was $127 billion of pensions due everybody in Connecticut. Okay, so how is everybody gonna get that money? Right?
Where are we gonna get? Yeah. Where are we gonna find those coins in the cushions?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. And in Detroit, people only got 20 or 30 cents on the dollar through the different bankruptcies and things like that.
Right.
We need experts to tell us that we're not at Detroit and everything's going to be okay, but we need to do this and that and this.
Right.
So
and so you're looking, you think, and I tend to agree that we need to get some leadership that can look at the problem honestly, assess it honestly with some experts, and then let's get to that root cause, right? Because I think, to your point, we've got tons of assets that we can build off of, and just like a great company, we've got to find a way to build off those assets. Some of them are geographic that you referenced, some are seasonal and beautiful, and a lot of it is human capital and human workforce. And you've even touched on it earlier, right? Connecticut's been a place you've been able to find that workforce and grow, and that's great. So we can build on those strengths and address the problem, but we can't address the problem if we're not honest about what that problem is.
And I think everybody, lots of people moving to Massachusetts or whatever the businesses or whatever. Well, guess what? One of these days, you're going to have a law office there and say, you know what? We can open a law office in Hartford for 40% discount, right? And so I think Connecticut's going to be okay in the long run, but between Boston and New York. But we have to address the root cause issue. And the U.S. government has it, as you said. 70 cents on the dollar is fixed. Right? Whatever those numbers are, and you can't really touch any of that. So, and we have that problem in the federal government too, which. Right. So there's, but we need leadership. We need people working together on both sides, or whatever aisle you're on. There shouldn't even be any aisles. You need to work together and for the common good on medical for Connecticut people. I mean, Hartford and Yale. We have no choices.
Right.
Okay. So the state legislature has to strengthen things to make sure that medical's okay in Connecticut. And along with transportation and things like that.
There's no question. There's no question. We need to make sure that we're working on that, keeping that stuff going forward, so that we can be as successful in the future, as we have been in the past. And I know you've kind of taken an active role. We kind of met through some folks at CBIA. I know you're active in the community. I'd like to talk a little bit about that, because one thing I bring up often on this podcast. And we've had the great fortune of talking to a number of successful business people such as yourself. And a common thread I often see is community engagement. Mm-hmm. So maybe talk a little bit about your community engagement and why you do it, and what value you think it brings to the community, to you personally, and to the business.
Well, I like to, I've been involved with CBIA, and I'm on 2 nonprofit boards and 2 a medical board and a not a family business board right now, but that's how you learn too. You learn and find out what's the latest and the greatest, or I belong to this YPO organization. People make mistakes. You learn from people's mistakes too. What happens, but our entire company.
I just want to talk about something, because YPO came up on another episode, but I don't think we actually really told people what it is. And I'm a member of EO, which is a similar organization, and I think it was remiss not to kind of talk about it a little bit more in the last episode. So maybe you could kind of educate the audience. What is YPO and what's the value?
Well, YPO is a business organization, international, with about 9,000 members, and roughly, if you're a president of a company before age 40. With roughly 50 people or $5 million in sales, you can join this organization, and then they have educational seminars, trips.
And once you're in, you can stay in.
And then they used to kick you out when you turned 50. But then there was another organization, and they kind of merged. So now everybody stays.
Everybody stays.
Until you quit or die. So, anyways, or quit paying the dues.
Quit paying the dues, right? So what's the value of an organization like YPO to a business leader, do you think?
Well, my father was in it since 72, and I've been in it since 1992. I think learning. My father had a group of people he met with for over 40 years and he would get advice on he was in our business, the sales hat, and he'd learned from these people for 40 years, and they're all passed away now except for one guy, and 6 of them all got Alzheimer's too. 6 out of the 8. Not good. But to learn and have the freedom to bounce things off of. So I can call you up and say, hey, how about this? You bounce an idea off me, and I've been able to be honest to be honest with you, tell you what I think of it, and then hopefully it's not on the podcast. But no, but you know what I mean. It's wonderful. It's wonderful to have professional organizations.
Being in a group like YPO has helped you grow professionally?
No, I think if we weren't in YPO, I don't think we'd be here today, because my father used it as a silent board of directors, and it was, I think it was key to our success over the years, and without a doubt, without a doubt. And it's just not YPO. There's Rotary and CEO.
Yeah, please talk about that. Yeah, what else do you do? Rotary,
CEO is same concept, but for smaller size companies or entrepreneurs, single entrepreneurs, it's fair to say. So there's I think very important to be involved with.
Has that been a legacy of the Ulbrich family, just sort of being involved in the community and giving back?
Yeah, matter of fact, we're involved with the Boys and Girls Club in Wallingford, and we just expanded a location to North Haven. My wife's president of the board in Wallingford, and I'm on the board. My father helped build the building in the 90s, and my grandfather got the original building in the 60s. So 3 generations of with the same organization, and
That's
we've been involved
fantastic.
with United Way.
We just raised in November. We do here at IT Direct. We do a give back month every year. We pick a charity and raise money. We just raised a little over $11,000 for the Hartford Boys and Girls Club just this past month.
That's great.
So yeah, I'm on the board there. Very proud of it. And a lot of people don't know, although I'm sure you do, that the Boys and Girls Club was founded here in Hartford by a group of wives in the mid 1800s. So.
And I know they have 9 locations. I met the president. It was an outstanding organization.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now in our company, a lot of our employees, we have community days, and they're giving back, and they're on lots of boards and things like that.
Tell us about your community day. What do you guys do for them?
Some of the United Way agencies might say, hey, can 9, 10 dozen people come out, paint, clean up, or whatever, and we're heavily involved with that, or teaching in high school, basic business principles or something like that. So
I think I talked to Sal Menzo. Do you know Sal Menzo?
Yeah, no, we're heheavily involved with his manufacturing environment with Sal, and trying to get high school kids to college or to manufacturing environment. Matter of fact, I think that should be a state law. All juniors and seniors in high school should walk through a manufacturing company. Because manufacturing,
we're making some news here, Chris. We got a first law proposal for Made in America of all time. Let's see if we can make this bill happen.
No, but to walk through a manufacturing company, because it's not the Civil War days.
No, or even the 60s
you can
and
eat
70s,
off the floor in most of the factories, and they're safe. You get a great 6-figure income sometimes, depending on the company and the industry, and it's wonderful. You don't have to go to college to become an accountant. You can be a supply chain scheduler at a company like ours, or Scott just left here. A horse engineering company like that, and great jobs in manufacturing, and people have to see it. And
I think we've been talking about jobs, and someone that I don't remember who it was kind of corrected me one time and said, "Listen, they're not jobs; these are careers. These are careers that you can raise a family, have a house, help send your kid to school." And I'm going to try and change my language, because I think we talk about jobs, and a job. I mean, a job is a point of pride. A job is a place where you can kind of exercise your passion. But not every job is the same as another job. And I think a career somewhere that you can grow and contribute is so exciting. And we've talked a lot about here on, talking about even what you guys do, and all the manufacturers that we've had that talk about, whether it's medical devices or the metals that go into all these different components, nuclear reactors, or what they're doing, the aerospace or the defense, or latches, handles, all different things that we're doing here in Connecticut, circuit boards, digital stuff. There's all kinds of stuff happening here. That's really cool stuff that I think people could dig their hands into, and it's really awesome. And what they're doing in Wallingford schools, I'd like you to talk about that a little bit more. I had a chance to talk to Sal at the ACM Aerospace Alley Trade Show, and he knocked my socks off with what they're doing down there in the Wallingford school system. It's really amazing.
Yeah, Sal's a real leader in the area of education, and a superintendent of schools in Wallingford, and getting kids involved in manufacturing and Hubcap. We have a Hubcap is in the center of town, getting people into small business, teaching people how do you start a company, and some of our people volunteer there and give seminars, and we help. One of our donations helps with the budget there.
Yeah,
and
I've heard that. I've heard that.
So really good stuff. We're hoping that this really moves high school students. Maybe we can pay for their colleges or their the next level of education if they work for us for 5 years and things like that. So there's a bunch of manufacturers in Wallingford working on some of this.
How'd you get involved in that?
Now, well, I think Jay Shea and Sal. Jay was on, who's our COO, was on Board of Education with Sal, and I think he's really kicked a lot of that off with Sal and the Board of
Sal's
Education.
Sal's a heck of an inspirational guy. That guy's he'll get you moving. Yeah.
So
that's exciting.
No, it's exciting stuff, and again, I think there's some great jobs and careers, but you also have to be, things change so much. You got to be a team player and realize that maybe that website language that you learned is obsolete next year, and you got to learn another language.
That's right.
So you got to be flexible and a team player, and and be willing to change.
That's right.
And because they say if you're 20, you might have 5 different careers when you turn 65, 40 and 45 years. I don't know if that's true, but
it certainly seems that way.
Things are changing quick with the 5G, and Davos, as you know, that big Switzerland thing. All they talked about was the unemployment that's going to come up because of you don't need taxi cab drivers, you don't need truck drivers, and they're already starting here, and the automatic in restaurants and robot cleaners, taking your order, kiosk.
Sure.
So how much is this going to really change life and change job and change careers? So
well, I'll throw some optimism your way as we start wrapping up here, but I think. I think it's something to talk about, and we certainly need to plan for it. But I think, you look back at the history kind of industry overall, and you go back 150 years or whatever, I think 88% of the population was engaged in growing food. And now I think it's less than 2% is involved in growing food. But we seem to manage to find other things for those people to do. So I
agree
think,
with you.
I think the key, though, that you talked about, and it's funny, Sal and I talked about, I got to get him on the podcast too, is the key is going to be teaching people how to think and how to grow, because those critical learning skills, those critical questioning skills, that's what will differentiate a human from a computer. Those are always going to be in demand. And I think it's so awesome that companies like yourself are engaging with the school system, because I think one thing that somehow has happened is that we kind of got diverged into our corners. The government was doing its thing, and private industry was doing its thing, and schools were doing their thing. And I don't think that everyone was talking to each other, and we disconnected. And just seeing what happens when businesses engage in the community and engage with the schools, and government engages with the schools and with the community, and we're all working together. We can really do some amazing stuff. It's just awesome.
I agree with you 100%. That good stuff. I think good stuff's out there, and people just got to work towards it and fix it, and be educated about it, and be flexible about it. So it's so good. It's so exciting. I think it's an exciting time.
I think so too. And I'm going to leave it on an exciting time.
Yeah.
And we're going to move to our wrap up, which is the rapid fire round of questions. Are you ready?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a surprise, which means you haven't listened to an episode.
Yeah.
Now you're going to have
surprised.
to. All right, here we go. Rapid fire round of questions. Hot takes: Red Sox or Yankees?
Red Sox.
Yes. Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts?
Dunkin' Donuts.
Okay. Staycation. When you take time off, staycation or exotic destination?
What's the first one?
Staycation.
Oh, state, as in staying in the state?
Stay.
Stay. Oh, okay. Really both.
Both.
Yeah.
Okay. iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Sports car or SUV?
I don't know if my Audi's a A7 is a sports car.
Close enough.
But I had four SUVs, so I kind of switched.
You switched over?
Yeah, so.
What caused you to switch?
I didn't have to haul around kids anymore.
I'm at the other end of that, Chris. I'm at the way other end of that.
Yeah.
If you could do or had to do something other than be the CEO of Ulbrich Stainless Steels and Specialty Metals, what would you do?
I think I just did a Appalachian Trail hike and I've been doing hiking and outward bound trips and things like that. I think I would have been hiking outward bound and work for
Trail guide leader type thing.
REI or something a little bit different. Yeah, I miss the outside. Just did 185 miles on the Appalachian Trail this summer.
Oh wow!
So raised money for a homeless shelter.
There you go. Look at that. Getting outside, involving the community, good stuff. Do you have a favorite business book?
I love nonfictions. I download Audible. I'm on book 180, and so nonfiction books, autobiographies, and
Do you have a
presidents. I think the teams of rivals from Lincoln was real special because of how Lincoln was able to get his enemies in a room, and they became his best friends, and he had great success with a lot of things, and it should be a real lesson to people who don't get along.
I agree. That's a heck of a book. What's one thing, Chris, you learned early in your life or early in your business career that propelled you to the success that you've had?
Well, I think that I'm not perfect, make a lot of mistakes, and got to listen more, and learn from people. And then I've really learned how being a team player is so important in the last 10 years for people. And
because my last question was going to be, what's something that you learned later in life that you go back and tell young Chris? Is that what you tell him?
Yeah, no, I think that working in a team, working with people, at all levels, and giving your thoughts and ideas and making things better for society, and if it's medical, if it's parts or whatever it is, whatever your love is,
Making it better. I love that. That's awesome. Thank you so much. We've got, if people want to reach out to you, follow up, learn more about Ulbrich, stainless steel and specialty metals, or in general, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, I'm known as the Steel Guy at Ulbrich.com. One word, STEELGUI, Ulbrich.com.
There you go. All right. That's awesome. We'll put that in the show notes too.
Okay.
And then the last question, we've talked about a lot of stuff, and I always like to ask the guests at the end, if someone's kind of coming off this podcast and you would say to them, hey, if you take away this one thing that we talked about and you implement that or you execute that, you'll really have gotten some value. What do you think something we talked about today that someone could get a lot of value out of if they put it in their life?
Let's see. I think I think lean is so important. How to make things better in your life for your people, for your family. Lean events, practicing lean events. It could be in your family. It could be at work. It's a key thing. And what a great way to work with people and get to know people from different diversities and everything else. It's wonderful. And you can make the place safer, more profitable. Better stuff for everybody.
I think that's a fantastic takeaway. And from my end, the thing I think people could get a lot from, there's a few things actually, so I was debating which one to go with, but you had said it early on when we talked about the family business was don't kick the can down the road. I think that can apply so many times. We tend to put off the thing that we don't want to do, which only makes it get worse and worse and worse. And it doesn't usually go away. Yep. So kicking the can down the road, I think, does very little to serve us in the long run. And I think people could learn a lot. There's a book I reminded me of called Eat That Frog, which talks about kind of getting that big, hairy, ugly thing you don't want to do, get it done first thing in the day and move on. I think your take on that was awesome. And I think people can learn from that. So thank you so much, Chris. It was a super pleasure.
Good being with you. Thank you.
Man.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by IT Direct.
As always, thanks so much for tuning in. I definitely want your feedback and hope you subscribe. But what I want the most is to build a community where we learn and grow with each other. I hope you're getting a lot of value out of the time we're spending together. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you next time.